Question 1. Consider a scenario where a financial services organization is implementing IBM Case Manager v5.0 to streamline its loan application processing. A new requirement mandates the integration of a third-party credit scoring service to automatically enrich case data. The integration needs to be completed within a tight deadline, and the development team is considering bypassing the standard data validation and security review processes to expedite the deployment. What is the most professionally responsible approach to integrating this new data source? Option A. Directly ingest the data from the credit scoring service into the IBM Case Manager v5.0 solution without intermediate validation or security checks, relying on the third-party service's inherent security and data accuracy. Option B. Implement a phased integration strategy, including thorough data mapping, cleansing, security protocol validation, and stage testing with the credit scoring service, ensuring compliance with all relevant financial data regulations and internal security policies before full deployment. Option C. Integrate the data source using a custom script that bypasses IBM Case Manager v5.0's built-in data handling mechanisms to achieve faster data transfer, without consulting with the data governance or security teams. Option D. Prioritize the deadline by integrating the data source immediately and addressing any potential data integrity or security issues retrospectively after the system is live. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased integration strategy, including thorough data mapping, cleansing, security protocol validation, and stage testing with the credit scoring service, ensuring compliance with all relevant financial data regulations and internal security policies before full deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent complexity of integrating a new, potentially sensitive data source into an existing IBM Case Manager v5.0 solution without compromising data integrity, security, or regulatory compliance. The need to balance functional requirements with these critical non-functional aspects demands careful consideration of implementation strategies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, controlled integration that allows for thorough testing and validation at each stage. This aligns with general principles of robust system development and deployment, ensuring that the new data source is properly cleansed, mapped, and secured before full integration. Specifically, in the context of IBM Case Manager v5.0, this methodical approach minimizes the risk of introducing errors or vulnerabilities that could impact case processing, data accuracy, or audit trails. It also allows for the identification and remediation of any compliance gaps related to data handling and privacy early in the process, which is crucial for maintaining trust and avoiding potential regulatory penalties. An incorrect approach that involves direct, unvalidated data ingestion without proper mapping or security controls would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would directly contravene best practices for data management and system integration, potentially leading to data corruption, unauthorized access, or breaches of confidentiality. Such an approach could also violate data privacy regulations, e.g., if personal data is mishandled, and audit requirements, as the integrity of case data would be compromised. Another incorrect approach, such as implementing the integration without consulting with the data governance and security teams, demonstrates a significant lapse in professional collaboration and risk management. This oversight could lead to the introduction of security vulnerabilities or non-compliance with established data handling policies, creating a significant liability for the organization. It bypasses essential checks and balances designed to protect sensitive information and ensure adherence to industry standards and legal obligations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the business requirements and the technical implications of the integration. This should be followed by a risk assessment that identifies potential data integrity, security, and compliance issues. Subsequently, a phased implementation plan should be developed, incorporating testing, validation, and stakeholder review at each stage. Collaboration with relevant teams, including IT security, data governance, and legal/compliance, is paramount throughout the process to ensure all aspects are adequately addressed. Question 2. The investigation demonstrates that a critical business process within IBM Case Manager v5 0 requires integration with a legacy system that has limited real-time data update capabilities. The legacy system's API is complex and prone to timeouts, making direct, synchronous updates unreliable. The goal is to ensure that case data in IBM Case Manager accurately reflects the status in the legacy system without compromising the integrity of either system or the auditability of the process. Which integration approach best addresses these challenges while adhering to professional best practices and regulatory considerations? Option A. Develop a custom direct database write utility that bypasses the legacy system's API to update its records directly from IBM Case Manager. This will ensure immediate data reflection. Option B. Implement a robust asynchronous integration pattern using a message queue. IBM Case Manager will send update requests to the queue, and a separate integration service will process these messages, attempting updates to the legacy system. This service will log all attempts, successes, and failures, and provide a mechanism for manual reconciliation of any persistent errors, ensuring a comprehensive audit trail within IBM Case Manager. Option C. Rely solely on the legacy system's internal logging mechanisms to track data changes, assuming that IBM Case Manager will eventually receive the correct data through other, unspecified means. Option D. Configure IBM Case Manager to poll the legacy system's database at regular intervals for changes and update case data accordingly, without implementing any confirmation or error handling for the legacy system's updates. Correct answer is B. Implement a robust asynchronous integration pattern using a message queue. IBM Case Manager will send update requests to the queue, and a separate integration service will process these messages, attempting updates to the legacy system. This service will log all attempts, successes, and failures, and provide a mechanism for manual reconciliation of any persistent errors, ensuring a comprehensive audit trail within IBM Case Manager. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0 where a critical business process requires integration with an external legacy system. The challenge lies in ensuring data integrity and process continuity during the integration, especially when the legacy system has limitations in real-time data synchronization. Professionals must balance the need for timely case processing with the technical constraints of the existing infrastructure, all while adhering to data governance and audit trail requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves designing a robust integration strategy that prioritizes data consistency and provides a mechanism for reconciliation. Implementing a staged data synchronization process, coupled with an audit trail within IBM Case Manager, ensures that all data changes are logged and can be traced. This aligns with best professional practices by maintaining data integrity, supporting regulatory compliance, e.g., for audit purposes, and minimizing the risk of data loss or corruption during the integration. The use of a dedicated integration layer or middleware further isolates the case management system from the complexities of the legacy system, promoting maintainability and reducing the impact of future legacy system changes. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that bypasses the legacy system's update mechanism to directly write to its database introduces significant risks. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it circumvents established data validation rules within the legacy system, potentially leading to data corruption and inconsistencies. It also creates an unmanageable audit trail, as changes made outside the legacy system's intended interface are not properly logged, violating data governance principles and making compliance difficult. Another incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the legacy system for all data updates, without any mechanism for IBM Case Manager to confirm successful updates. This is professionally unacceptable as it creates a single point of failure and can lead to data discrepancies between the systems. If the legacy system fails to update, the case in IBM Case Manager would reflect outdated information, leading to incorrect decisions and potential regulatory noncompliance if accurate data is a requirement for the business process. Finally, an approach that ignores the need for an audit trail within IBM Case Manager for these integration events is a critical failure. This directly impacts the ability to demonstrate compliance with data retention and audit requirements, which are often mandated by industry regulations. Without a clear record of data exchanges and transformations, it becomes impossible to investigate discrepancies or prove the integrity of the case data, leading to significant legal and operational risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such integration challenges by first thoroughly understanding the capabilities and limitations of both systems. A risk-based assessment should guide the design, prioritizing data integrity and auditability. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all integration points and data flows. 2. Assessing the impact of potential data inconsistencies. 3. Designing an integration pattern that ensures data consistency and provides a clear audit trail. 4. Testing the integration thoroughly to validate data accuracy and process flow. 5. Documenting the integration strategy and its rationale, ensuring it aligns with regulatory and business requirements. Question 3. Upon reviewing the performance metrics for a critical case type in IBM Case Manager v5.0, it has become evident that a significant bottleneck exists in the document review step, causing an average delay of 3 business days per case. This delay is impacting client satisfaction and potentially violating service-level agreements. The current workflow design does not allow for concurrent review of documents by different departments, nor does it have a clear path for escalating or rerouting documents that require specialized attention beyond the standard review process. What is the most effective approach to address this implementation challenge? Option A. Implement a manual workaround where certain documents are processed outside of IBM Case Manager by a dedicated team to alleviate the bottleneck. Option B. Modify the workflow to introduce parallel processing for document review by different departments and implement decision gateways to route documents requiring specialized attention to appropriate subprocesses. Option C. Allocate additional personnel to the document review step to increase throughput without altering the existing workflow structure. Option D. Redesign the entire case type to eliminate the document review step, assuming it is not essential for case resolution. The correct answer is B. Modify the workflow to introduce parallel processing for document review by different departments and implement decision gateways to route documents requiring specialized attention to appropriate subprocesses. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0 where the initial design of a case type's workflow does not adequately account for potential exceptions or parallel processing needs. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient case progression with the flexibility required to handle real-world variations. A rigid workflow can lead to delays, user frustration, and potential noncompliance if cases get stuck or are processed incorrectly. The professional challenge is to identify the root cause of the bottleneck and propose a solution that is both technically sound within the IBM Case Manager framework and aligns with the business process's objectives and any relevant regulatory requirements for timely processing. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves analyzing the existing workflow to identify specific points where parallel processing or exception handling is needed. This typically involves leveraging IBM Case Manager's capabilities to introduce parallel steps, decision points, or subprocesses. For instance, if a case requires simultaneous review by 2 departments, the workflow can be modified to branch into parallel paths that converge later. If an exception arises, a decision gateway can route the case to a specific exception handling subprocess. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified inefficiency by enhancing the workflow's adaptability and robustness. It ensures that the system can handle the complexities of the business process without manual workarounds, thereby improving efficiency, reducing errors, and maintaining compliance with any service-level agreements or regulatory mandates for case resolution times. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to simply increase the resources allocated to the bottleneck step without modifying the workflow. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to address the underlying structural issue. It's akin to adding more lanes to a road without fixing a traffic light that's causing congestion. This can lead to increased costs without a proportional improvement in efficiency and may even mask the problem, making it harder to diagnose later. From a regulatory perspective, if the business process is subject to time-sensitive requirements, this approach might not guarantee timely resolution and could lead to breaches of service-level agreements or regulatory noncompliance. Another incorrect approach is to bypass the problematic step entirely for certain case types. This is professionally unacceptable as it creates inconsistencies in case processing and can lead to incomplete or inaccurate case outcomes. It undermines the integrity of the business process and the data within the case management system. Ethically and regulatorily, this can be problematic if it leads to differential treatment of cases or if critical steps are omitted, potentially violating audit trails or compliance requirements. A third incorrect approach is to revert to manual processes outside of IBM Case Manager to handle the overflow. This is professionally unacceptable because it negates the purpose of implementing a case management system. It introduces inefficiencies, increases the risk of errors, reduces visibility, and makes auditing and reporting extremely difficult. From a regulatory standpoint, relying on manual, undocumented processes can lead to significant compliance failures, as it becomes impossible to demonstrate adherence to established procedures or to provide a clear audit trail. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such implementation challenges should first conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the workflow bottleneck. This involves understanding the business process, identifying the specific points of delay or complexity, and evaluating the current workflow design against these requirements. The next step is to explore the capabilities of IBM Case Manager v5.0 to address these issues. This includes understanding how to implement parallel steps, decision gateways, sub-processes, and exception handling mechanisms. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that enhance the workflow's efficiency, flexibility, and auditability, while ensuring compliance with all relevant business rules and regulatory obligations. Collaboration with business stakeholders is crucial to validate proposed solutions and ensure they meet business needs without introducing new risks. Question 4. Strategic planning requires a thorough understanding of the implementation environment and potential challenges. In a scenario where a critical business process needs to be automated using IBM Case Manager v5.0 within a tight deadline, and the project team is considering shortcuts to expedite deployment, which of the following approaches best balances speed with the necessary governance and auditability requirements? Option A. Focus solely on meeting the deadline by deploying the minimum viable product without extensive documentation or formal sign-offs, relying on informal feedback for subsequent improvements. Option B. Prioritize immediate deployment of the core functionality, deferring comprehensive user acceptance testing and formal audit trail configuration to a post-launch stabilization period. Option C. Expedite the development by bypassing formal change control processes and directly deploying code changes to production based on developer confidence. Option D. Implement the solution in phases, ensuring each phase includes rigorous testing, validation, and integration with the established governance and audit logging mechanisms, even if it slightly extends the initial deployment timeline. The correct answer is B. Prioritize immediate deployment of the core functionality, deferring comprehensive user acceptance testing and formal audit trail configuration to a post-launch stabilization period. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0 projects, balancing the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of adhering to established governance and audit trails. The challenge lies in the inherent tension between business urgency and the meticulous documentation and validation required for regulatory compliance and long-term maintainability. Professionals must navigate this by ensuring that even in accelerated timelines, critical steps are not bypassed, as doing so can lead to significant risks. The correct approach emphasizes a phased implementation with robust testing and validation at each stage, integrated with the existing governance framework. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that the deployed solution is not only functional, but also secure, auditable, and compliant with relevant regulations. In the context of IBM Case Manager v5.0, this means leveraging its built-in versioning, audit logging, and security features from the outset. This approach guarantees that changes are traceable, approvals are documented, and the system's integrity is maintained throughout its lifecycle, which is crucial for any regulated industry. Incorrect approaches fail to recognize the critical importance of governance and auditability. One incorrect approach might involve deploying a solution without comprehensive user acceptance testing, UAT, or without proper sign-off from stakeholders and compliance officers. This is a direct violation of good project management principles and can lead to the deployment of a flawed or non-compliant solution. From a regulatory perspective, This bypasses essential validation steps that are often mandated to ensure data integrity and system reliability. Another incorrect approach could be to defer the integration of audit logging and security configurations to a later phase, treating them as secondary concerns. This is ethically problematic as it compromises the security and transparency of the case management process from the moment of deployment, potentially exposing sensitive data and making it impossible to reconstruct case histories accurately for audit purposes. Such oversights can lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. Before commencing implementation, a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape and internal governance policies is essential. This understanding should inform the project plan, ensuring that adequate time and resources are allocated for testing, validation, and security implementation. When faced with pressure to accelerate timelines, professionals must advocate for maintaining these critical steps, explaining the long-term risks and potential consequences of shortcuts. This involves clear communication with stakeholders, highlighting how adherence to governance and audit requirements protects the organization and its clients. Question 5. Examination of the data shows that a critical business process with an IBM Case Manager v5.0 relies on integrating data from an external financial system. The current implementation attempts a direct, synchronous connection for every data retrieval, which is causing significant performance degradation and occasional timeouts during peak hours. The business requires near real-time data for accurate case assessment, but also needs to ensure the stability and integrity of the case management system. Which of the following approaches best addresses this implementation challenge while adhering to best practices for data integrity and system performance? Option A. Implement an asynchronous integration pattern, such as message queuing or event-driven updates, with robust error handling and a reconciliation process to ensure data consistency between systems. Option B. Maintain the synchronous integration, but increase the server resources allocated to the IBM Case Manager environment to absorb the increased load. Option C. Re-architect the external financial system to expose data via a simpler, less secure API that can be pulled more frequently without impacting its performance. Option D. Implement a daily batch import of all relevant data from the external financial system into a local data store with an IBM Case Manager. The correct answer is A. Implement an asynchronous integration pattern, such as message queuing or event-driven updates, with robust error handling and a reconciliation process to ensure data consistency between systems. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager, where a critical business process relies on accurate and timely data integration. The challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate data availability for case processing with the potential performance impact and data integrity risks of direct, real-time integration. Professionals must consider the trade-offs between different integration strategies, ensuring compliance with data governance policies and maintaining system stability. Correct approach analysis. The recommended approach of implementing an asynchronous integration pattern with a robust error handling and reconciliation mechanism represents best professional practice. This pattern decouples the case processing from the external system, preventing performance bottlenecks and ensuring that case progression is not blocked by integration failures. The asynchronous nature allows for scheduled or event-driven data updates, providing a balance between data freshness and system resilience. The inclusion of error handling and reconciliation directly addresses data integrity concerns, ensuring that discrepancies are identified and resolved, thereby maintaining compliance with data accuracy requirements and preventing potential regulatory breaches related to inaccurate record keeping. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a direct, synchronous integration without adequate error handling or fallback mechanisms is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach creates a single point of failure. If the external system is unavailable or slow, the entire case processing workflow can halt, leading to delays and potential non-compliance with service-level agreements or regulatory deadlines. It also exposes the system to data corruption if an error occurs mid-transaction. Choosing to bypass data validation entirely to speed up integration is a direct violation of data governance principles and potentially regulatory requirements for data accuracy and integrity. This can lead to incorrect case outcomes, financial misstatements, or other serious consequences, all of which carry significant legal and ethical ramifications. Opting for a batch integration that runs only once a day, without any mechanism for near real-time updates for critical data points, can also lead to regulatory issues. If the business process requires up-to-date information for compliance or decision-making, a daily batch update might result in decisions being made on stale data, leading to non-compliance and potential reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such integration challenges by first understanding the criticality of the data and the acceptable latency for case processing. A risk-based approach is essential, evaluating the potential impact of integration failures on business operations and regulatory compliance. Designing for resilience through asynchronous patterns, implementing comprehensive error handling, and establishing clear reconciliation processes are key to mitigating risks. Regular testing and monitoring of the integration are also crucial to ensure ongoing performance and compliance. Question 6. Performance analysis shows a significant increase in the time taken for users to load case lists and open individual cases with an IBM Case Manager v5.0. The system has been operational for over a year with no prior performance complaints. The IT operations team has observed increased CPU utilization on the application server, but the database server shows normal load. What is the most appropriate initial step to diagnose and resolve this performance degradation? Option A. Begin a phased rollback of recent custom code deployments and integration updates without first gathering detailed performance metrics from the core system. Option B. Focus on optimizing the configuration of the IBM Case Manager web services, assuming that increased API calls are the primary cause of the performance bottleneck. Option C. Analyze IBM Case Manager application server logs and JVM heap dumps for errors or excessive garbage collection, and review database query performance logs for any recently introduced slow queries or locking issues. Option D. Immediately initiate a full network diagnostic sweep to identify any latency or packet loss between the client machines and the IBM Case Manager application server. The correct answer is C. Analyze IBM Case Manager application server logs and JVM heap dumps for errors or excessive garbage collection, and review database query performance logs for any recently introduced slow queries or locking issues. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0 where performance degradation impacts user experience and potentially business operations. The challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of the performance issues within a complex system that involves multiple components: the IBM Case Manager application server, the underlying database, network infrastructure, and potentially custom code or integrations. Without a systematic and evidence-based approach, teams can waste valuable time and resources pursuing incorrect solutions, leading to prolonged downtime, increased costs, and erosion of stakeholder confidence. The pressure to resolve performance issues quickly, coupled with the complexity of the system, necessitates a structured and analytical approach to problem solving. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical investigation that begins with gathering comprehensive performance metrics and logs from all relevant system components. This includes analyzing IBM Case Manager application server logs, database performance statistics, e.g., query execution times, lock contention, network latency, and any custom code execution times. By correlating these metrics, the team can identify patterns and pinpoint the specific area exhibiting the bottleneck. For instance, if database query logs show consistently slow execution times for specific case retrieval operations, the focus would shift to optimizing those queries or database indexing. This data-driven approach ensures that remediation efforts are targeted and effective, aligning with best practices for system administration and performance tuning. It also supports compliance by demonstrating a diligent effort to maintain system integrity and availability, which can be implicitly or explicitly required by operational guidelines or service-level agreements. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately assume the issue lies solely with the IBM Case Manager application server and begin making arbitrary configuration changes without supporting data. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses the critical diagnostic phase, potentially introducing new problems or failing to address the actual root cause. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due diligence and professional responsibility in troubleshooting. Another incorrect approach is to focus exclusively on network infrastructure, without first ruling out application or database bottlenecks. While network issues can cause performance problems, they are often a secondary symptom or not the primary cause. This approach is flawed because it may lead to unnecessary network optimizations that do not resolve the core performance issue, wasting resources and time. It demonstrates a lack of systematic problem solving, which is a breach of professional conduct. Third incorrect approach is to blame external integrations or custom code, without first verifying the performance of the core IBM case manager system and its direct dependencies. While integrations can be a source of performance issues, assuming they are the sole culprit without thorough investigation of the platform itself is premature and unprofessional. This can damage relationships with integration partners and delay the resolution of issues within the team's control. It reflects a failure to take ownership of the problem until all internal factors have been thoroughly examined. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing performance issues should adopt a structured troubleshooting methodology. This typically involves 1. Define the problem. Clearly articulate the observed performance degradation, including specific symptoms, affected users, and timeframes. 2. Gather data. Collect relevant logs, metrics, and monitoring data from all system components. 3. Analyze data. Correlate the collected data to identify patterns, anomalies, and potential root causes. 4. Formulate hypotheses. Based on the analysis, develop plausible explanations for the performance issues. 5. Test hypotheses. Implement targeted tests or changes to validate or invalidate each hypothesis. 6. Implement solution. Once the root cause is identified, implement the most effective and least disruptive solution. 7. Verify solution. Monitor the system to confirm that the performance issue has been resolved and no new issues have been introduced. 8. Document. Record the problem, the investigation process, the solution, and the outcome for future reference and knowledge sharing. This systematic process ensures that decisions are based on evidence, minimizing the risk of incorrect actions and maximizing the efficiency of problem resolution. Question 7. Benchmark analysis indicates that a critical business process within IBM Case Manager v5.0 requires real-time data synchronization with an aging, external financial services legacy system. The legacy system is known for intermittent performance degradation and occasional unavailability. Which integration approach best balances the need for accurate, up-to-date case information with the stability and reliability of both systems? Option A. Implement a hybrid integration strategy that uses asynchronous messaging for non-critical updates and robust, error-handled synchronous calls for essential real-time data retrieval, incorporating retry mechanisms and circuit breakers. Option B. Mandate that all case data requiring legacy system interaction be updated synchronously, ensuring immediate data consistency at the cost of potential process interruption. Option C. Replicate all relevant data from the legacy system into IBM Case Manager and discontinue direct integration, managing data consistency through manual reconciliation processes. Option D. Design a purely asynchronous integration pattern, relying on scheduled batch updates to synchronize data between IBM Case Manager and the legacy system, accepting potential data latency. The correct answer is A. Implement a hybrid integration strategy that uses asynchronous messaging for non-critical updates and robust, error-handled synchronous calls for essential real-time data retrieval, incorporating retry mechanisms and circuit breakers. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0 where a critical business process requires integration with an external legacy system. The challenge lies in balancing the need for real-time data synchronization with the inherent limitations and potential instability of the legacy system. Over-reliance on direct, synchronous integration can lead to performance bottlenecks, system downtime, and data corruption if the legacy system falters. Conversely, a purely asynchronous approach might introduce unacceptable data latency for certain critical case management functions. The professional challenge is to design a solution that is robust, performant, and compliant with data integrity principles, while also considering the practical constraints of the existing infrastructure. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a hybrid integration strategy. This leverages asynchronous messaging for non-critical updates and background processing, ensuring the case management system remains responsive and the legacy system is not overwhelmed. For critical, real-time data requirements, it employs a carefully managed synchronous integration pattern, possibly with robust error handling, retry mechanisms, and circuit breakers. This approach represents best professional practice because it acknowledges the different data needs of the business process and the technical realities of integrating with a legacy system. It prioritizes system stability and data integrity by minimizing the impact of potential legacy system issues on the case management workflow. This aligns with general IT best practices for system integration and risk management, ensuring business continuity and reliable data. Incorrect approach is analysis, a purely synchronous integration approach, where every case update triggers an immediate, blocking call to the legacy system, is professionally unacceptable. This would create a single point of failure. Any latency or downtime in the legacy system would directly halt the case management process, leading to significant business disruption and potential data loss if transactions cannot be completed. This violates principles of system resilience and fault tolerance. An entirely asynchronous integration approach, relying solely on batch processing or delayed updates, is also professionally unacceptable for critical data requirements. If the business process necessitates immediate access to up-to-date information from the legacy system, e.g., for fraud detection or immediate customer verification, a delayed update would lead to incorrect decisions, compliance issues, and a degraded user experience. This fails to meet the functional requirements of the case management solution. A third incorrect approach might be to bypass integration entirely and duplicate data with an IBM case manager. This is professionally unsound due to data governance and integrity concerns. Maintaining two separate, potentially inconsistent data sources creates a high risk of data drift, audit failures, and compliance violations, especially if the legacy system holds authoritative data. It also increases the maintenance overhead significantly. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such integration challenges by first thoroughly understanding the business requirements and the criticality of data synchronization for different aspects of the case management process. This involves detailed analysis of data latency tolerance and the impact of potential system failures. Next, a technical assessment of the legacy system's capabilities, limitations, and stability is crucial. Based on this, a hybrid integration strategy should be designed, prioritizing robustness, scalability, and fault tolerance. This decision-making process emphasizes a risk-based approach, ensuring that the chosen integration pattern aligns with both business needs and technical realities, while adhering to established principles of system design and data management. Question 8. Analysis of an implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0, where a critical business process requires real-time data synchronization with a complex, aging legacy system that has limited API capabilities. The project team is considering several integration approaches to ensure data consistency and operational continuity. Which approach best balances technical feasibility, operational resilience, and regulatory compliance for this scenario? Option A. Utilize a batch processing approach where data is periodically exported from the legacy system and imported into Case Manager, accepting a delay in data synchronization. Option B. Develop direct, synchronous API calls from IBM Case Manager to the legacy system to retrieve and update data in real time, minimizing middleware complexity. Option C. Implement a robust, asynchronous messaging pattern using an enterprise service bus, ESB, for data transformation and reliable delivery, ensuring loose coupling between Case Manager and the legacy system. Option D. Create a custom, point-to-point integration solution without any middleware to directly connect Case Manager to the legacy system's database. The correct answer is C. Implement a robust, asynchronous messaging pattern using an enterprise service bus, ESB, for data transformation and reliable delivery, ensuring loose coupling between Case Manager and the legacy system. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Case Manager v5.0, where a critical business process requires integration with an external legacy system. The challenge lies in balancing the need for real-time data synchronization with the constraints of the legacy system's architecture and the potential impact on existing business operations. The project team must select an integration strategy that is both technically feasible and compliant with data governance policies, ensuring data integrity and auditability without disrupting critical business functions. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term stability and regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased integration strategy that prioritizes a robust, asynchronous messaging pattern using an enterprise service bus, ESP, or a similar middleware solution. This method allows for decoupling the case manager system from the legacy system, providing resilience and fault tolerance. Asynchronous communication ensures that case manager operations are not blocked by potential delays or failures in the legacy system. The use of a well-defined data transformation layer within the middleware addresses data format discrepancies and ensures data integrity. This approach aligns with best practices for system integration, promoting maintainability, scalability, and auditability, which are crucial for regulatory compliance. It allows for thorough testing of each integration component before full deployment, minimizing risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. Direct, synchronous API calls from IBM Case Manager to the legacy system, while seemingly simpler, represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach creates tight coupling, meaning any performance issue or downtime in the legacy system directly impacts case manager's functionality, potentially halting critical business processes. This lack of resilience can lead to data loss or corruption if transactions are not properly handled during outages, violating data integrity principles. Furthermore, the lack of a clear audit trail for data transformations and the increased complexity of error handling in a synchronous model make it difficult to meet audit requirements and demonstrate compliance. Developing a custom, point-to-point integration solution without a middleware layer is also professionally unacceptable. This approach often leads to a brittle, unmaintainable solution that is difficult to test, debug, and scale. It bypasses established integration patterns and can introduce security vulnerabilities. From a regulatory perspective, the lack of standardized error handling and logging mechanisms makes it challenging to provide an auditable trail of data processing, potentially failing compliance requirements related to data lineage and transaction integrity. Implementing a batch processing solution that periodically exports data from the legacy system and imports it into Case Manager without real-time synchronization is another flawed approach. While it might seem to reduce immediate integration complexity, it fails to meet the requirement for real-time data access, which is often critical for effective case management. This delay in data availability can lead to incorrect decisions being made based on outdated information, impacting business outcomes, and potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance if timely reporting or action is mandated. The lack of immediate data synchronization also complicates the audit trail, making it harder to trace the exact state of data at any given moment. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach integration challenges by first thoroughly understanding the business requirements, including the need for real-time data and the technical constraints of all involved systems. A risk-based approach is essential, prioritizing solutions that offer resilience, auditability, and maintainability. Evaluating integration patterns like asynchronous messaging, service-oriented architecture (SOA), and microservices, and selecting the most appropriate based on the specific context is key. Adherence to established data governance policies and regulatory frameworks, such as those pertaining to data integrity, privacy, and auditability, must be a primary consideration throughout the design and implementation phases. Continuous testing and validation, coupled with robust error handling and logging, are critical to ensure a successful and compliant integration. Question 9. The control framework reveals that a senior case manager has a close personal relationship with a claimant whose case is currently under review and for which the case manager has approval authority. Which of the following actions best upholds professional integrity and the principles of fair case management within the context of IBM Case Manager v5? 0. Option A. Disclose the relationship to the claimant and ask them if they are comfortable with the case manager proceeding. Option B. Proceed with the case decision, confident in their ability to remain objective despite the personal relationship. Option C. Inform their supervisor of the relationship but continue to provide input on the case, believing their experience can still benefit the process. Option D. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to their supervisor and recuse themselves from any decision-making or involvement in the claimant's case. The correct answer is D. immediately disclose the personal relationship to their supervisor and recuse themselves from any decision-making or involvement in the claimant's case. Explanation: the control framework reveals a potential conflict of interest within the case management team. A senior case manager, responsible for approving critical case decisions, has a close personal relationship with a claimant whose case is currently under review. This situation is professionally challenging because it blurs the lines between professional duty and personal connection, potentially compromising the integrity and fairness of the case management process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that decisions are made objectively, based solely on the merits of the case, and in accordance with IBM Case Manager v5. 0 guidelines and relevant regulatory principles. The correct approach, which involves immediate disclosure of the personal relationship to the supervisor and recusal from any decision-making related to the claimant's case, represents best professional practice. This aligns with ethical principles of transparency, impartiality, and avoiding conflicts of interest. By disclosing the relationship, the case manager upholds their professional integrity and allows for an unbiased review of the case. Recusal ensures that the decision-making process remains objective and free from undue influence, thereby protecting the fairness of the outcome and maintaining trust in the case management system. This approach is supported by general ethical guidelines for professionals and the implicit requirement within any robust control framework to manage and mitigate risks associated with conflicts of interest. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the case decision without disclosing the relationship, assuming personal objectivity can be maintained. This fails to acknowledge the inherent risk of unconscious bias and violates the principle of transparency. It could lead to a perception of favoritism or unfairness, even if no actual bias occurred, thereby undermining confidence in the process. Another incorrect approach would be to disclose the relationship, but still attempt to influence the decision-making process indirectly. This is ethically unacceptable as it still leverages the personal connection for potential gain or preferential treatment, violating impartiality. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the relationship and hope it goes unnoticed. This is a direct breach of professional responsibility and ethical conduct, as it actively conceals a material fact that could impact the integrity of the case. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a structured decision-making process. First, identify the potential conflict of interest. Second, assess the materiality of the conflict. How significant is the potential impact on the case outcome? Third, consult relevant organizational policies and ethical guidelines. Fourth, if a conflict exists, disclose it promptly to the appropriate authority, e.g., supervisor, ethics committee. Fifth, follow the prescribed procedures for recusal or mitigation of the conflict. Finally, document the disclosure and the actions taken. This systematic approach ensures that ethical considerations are paramount and that professional duties are discharged with integrity. Question 10. Quality control measures reveal that the automated case routing algorithm in IBM Case Manager v5.0 is disproportionately assigning certain types of cases to specific case managers, potentially indicating a bias. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this issue? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive audit of the algorithm's logic and data inputs to identify and rectify any sources of bias, followed by rigorous testing and ongoing monitoring of its performance. Option B. Manually adjust the routing for any cases that appear to be misassigned by the algorithm without altering the algorithm itself. Option C. Ignore the findings, assuming they are statistical outliers that do not significantly impact overall case distribution. Option D. Deactivate the automated case routing feature and revert to a purely manual assignment process to avoid any algorithmic influence. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive audit of the algorithm's logic and data inputs to identify and rectify any sources of bias, followed by rigorous testing and ongoing monitoring of its performance. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for bias in case routing, which can impact fairness and the perception of impartiality in legal proceedings. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient case management with the ethical imperative to ensure that case assignment is not influenced by factors that could compromise due process or create an appearance of impropriety. The use of an algorithm, while intended to be objective, can inadvertently perpetuate existing biases if not carefully designed and monitored. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review and recalibration of the case routing algorithm to identify and mitigate any potential biases. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, impartiality, and due process, which are fundamental to the administration of justice. By actively seeking to correct algorithmic bias, the organization demonstrates a commitment to upholding these principles and ensuring that all parties receive equitable treatment. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining public trust and confidence in the legal system. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to dismiss the quality control findings as minor anomalies. This fails to acknowledge the potential for systemic bias and its impact on case outcomes. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the principles of fairness. It could lead to continued disparate treatment of cases, violating ethical obligations to ensure justice is administered impartially. Another incorrect approach is to manually override the algorithm for specific cases without a clear, documented, and objective rationale. This introduces human subjectivity and can create an appearance of favoritism or manipulation, undermining the integrity of the case management system. Ethically, this can lead to accusations of bias and compromise the principle of equal treatment under the law. A third incorrect approach is to simply disable the automated routing and revert to a purely manual system without addressing the underlying issues. While this might seem like a solution, it is inefficient and can reintroduce human error and bias in a different form. It fails to leverage the potential benefits of technology for objective case management and does not address the root cause of the algorithmic bias. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should follow a structured decision-making process. First, they must acknowledge and investigate the findings of the quality control measures thoroughly. Second, they should consult relevant ethical guidelines and legal precedents concerning fairness and impartiality in case management. Third, they should engage technical experts to analyze the algorithm's logic and data inputs for potential biases. Fourth, they should develop and implement a plan for recalibration, testing, and ongoing monitoring of the algorithm. Finally, they should document all actions taken and ensure transparency in the process to maintain accountability and public trust. Question 11. Research into the performance metrics of an IBM Case Manager v5.0 implementation reveals that a specific demographic group is consistently receiving lower scores in a particular case type, leading to a senior executive expressing concern and suggesting adjustments to the scoring logic to level the playing field for this group. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Conduct a thorough data analysis to identify the root causes of the performance disparity, examining case attributes, process flows, and system configurations, and propose evidence-based adjustments if warranted. Option B. Ignore the executive's suggestion and continue with the current scoring logic, assuming the system is functioning as intended. Option C. Implement a superficial workaround or quick fix to artificially inflate the scores for the affected demographic group, without a comprehensive understanding of the underlying issues. Option D. Immediately adjust the scoring or weighting mechanisms within IBM Case Manager v5.0 to increase the scores for the affected demographic group, as requested by the executive. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough data analysis to identify the root causes of the performance disparity, examining case attributes, process flows, and system configurations, and propose evidence-based adjustments if warranted. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the potential for bias and the ethical obligation to maintain data integrity within an IBM Case Manager v5.0 implementation. The core dilemma lies in the conflict between a perceived need to improve results for a specific stakeholder group and the fundamental principle of objective, unbiased case processing. The pressure from a senior executive introduces an additional layer of complexity, requiring the case manager to navigate organizational politics while upholding professional standards. The risk of introducing subtle, yet significant, biases into the system can have far-reaching consequences, impacting fairness, regulatory compliance, and the overall trustworthiness of the case management solution. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven investigation into the observed performance differences. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing objectivity and evidence-based decision-making. Specifically, it adheres to the principles of data integrity and fairness inherent in responsible system design and management. By analyzing the underlying data and system configurations, the case manager can identify the root causes of any disparities without resorting to potentially biased adjustments. This approach respects the integrity of the IBM Case Manager v5.0 system and ensures that any modifications are made based on factual findings, not subjective interpretations or external pressures. It also upholds the ethical duty to avoid introducing or perpetuating unfair discrimination. Incorrect approaches analysis, adjusting scoring or weighting based on the executive's request without a data-driven investigation, represents a significant ethical and professional failure. This approach introduces bias directly into the system, undermining the fairness and objectivity of case processing. It violates the principle of treating all cases and individuals equitably, potentially leading to discriminatory outcomes. Furthermore, it circumvents proper change management procedures and could violate internal policies or external regulations governing data handling and system integrity. Ignoring the executive's request and continuing with the current, potentially suboptimal, processing is also an incorrect approach. While it avoids introducing bias, it fails to address a potential systemic issue that might be hindering effective case resolution or creating unintended negative consequences. Professional responsibility includes proactively identifying and addressing such issues, rather than passively allowing them to persist. This approach neglects the duty to optimize system performance and ensure it meets its intended objectives in a fair and efficient manner. Implementing a quick fix or workaround without understanding the underlying cause is another professionally unacceptable approach. Such actions often lead to unintended consequences, further system complexity, and can mask the true problem, making it harder to resolve in the long term. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to apply a systematic, analytical approach to problem solving, which is critical in managing complex systems like IBM Case Manager v5.0. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a dilemma should employ a structured decision-making process. First, they must clearly identify the ethical and professional principles at stake, such as fairness, objectivity, data integrity, and accountability. Second, they should gather all relevant information, including system logs, performance metrics, and any documented requirements or policies. Third, they should analyze the data to understand the root cause of the observed phenomenon. Fourth, they should consult relevant documentation, best practices, and potentially colleagues or supervisors to validate their understanding and propose solutions. Finally, they should communicate their findings and recommendations clearly and transparently, justifying their proposed course of action based on evidence and professional standards. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well-informed, ethically sound, and aligned with professional responsibilities. Question 12. The efficiency study reveals that a case manager has been assigned a critical case involving a close personal friend. The case manager is aware of this relationship and is concerned about maintaining objectivity and adhering to IBM Case Manager v5.0 best practices for impartiality, while also being mindful of potential U.S. regulatory implications regarding fair treatment and data privacy. What is the most appropriate course of action for the case manager? Option A. Proceed with managing the case as usual, confident that their professional integrity will prevent any bias from influencing their decisions. Option B. Assign the case to a colleague without mentioning the personal relationship, believing this will remove them from direct involvement. Option C. Immediately report the personal relationship to their supervisor or the designated ethics committee to seek guidance on managing the conflict of interest. Option D. Discreetly provide preferential treatment to the friend's case to expedite its resolution, assuming it will not be detected. Correct answer is C. Immediately report the personal relationship to their supervisor or the designated ethics committee to seek guidance on managing the conflict of interest. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a case manager, acting as a trusted advisor, discovers a potential conflict of interest that could compromise the integrity of the case management process and potentially lead to regulatory noncompliance. The case manager must balance the need for efficient case resolution with their ethical obligations to all parties involved and adherence to IBM Case Manager v5.0 guidelines and any applicable U.S. regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and professional conduct. The pressure to meet efficiency targets, coupled with the personal relationship, creates a complex ethical dilemma requiring careful judgment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediate and transparent disclosure of the potential conflict of interest to the appropriate supervisory authority or ethics committee within the organization. This aligns with best professional practices and regulatory requirements that mandate transparency and the avoidance of conflicts of interest. By reporting the situation, the case manager upholds their fiduciary duty, ensures impartiality, and allows for an objective assessment and management of the conflict. This proactive step protects the integrity of the case management system, prevents potential bias, and safeguards against any regulatory violations related to unfair practices or data misuse, as would be expected under U.S. professional conduct guidelines. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the case without disclosing the relationship, rationalizing that it will not influence the outcome. This is a direct violation of ethical principles and potentially U.S. regulations concerning conflicts of interest and professional integrity. It creates an appearance of impropriety, erodes trust, and could lead to accusations of bias or unfair treatment, jeopardizing the case and the case manager's professional standing. Another incorrect approach is to subtly favor the acquaintance's case without explicit disclosure, believing it can be done discreetly. This is ethically reprehensible and a clear breach of professional duty. It constitutes a form of professional misconduct, potentially violating U.S. laws and regulations that prohibit favoritism and mandate impartial handling of all cases. Such actions undermine the fairness of the system and can have severe legal and professional repercussions. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the case to another case manager without informing them of the personal relationship. While seemingly an attempt to avoid direct involvement, this still fails to address the root conflict of interest. The case manager has a responsibility to ensure the integrity of the process from its inception. Failing to disclose the relationship to the supervisor or relevant authority means the organization is not aware of the potential for bias, and the conflict is not formally managed, potentially leading to future complications or regulatory scrutiny. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should follow a structured decision-making process. First, identify the ethical issue and potential conflicts. Second, consult relevant professional codes of conduct, organizational policies, and applicable regulations, in this case, U.S. frameworks and IBM Case Manager v5.0 guidelines. Third, explore all possible courses of action and their consequences. Fourth, seek guidance from supervisors, ethics committees, or legal counsel. Fifth, choose the option that best upholds ethical principles, regulatory compliance, and the integrity of the professional role. Transparency and impartiality are paramount. Question 13. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusual access activity within IBM Case Manager v5.0, suggesting a potential deviation from standard operating procedures. As a case manager, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to investigate this anomaly while upholding professional ethics and regulatory compliance? Option A. Discuss the observed pattern with a trusted colleague to get their opinion on what might be happening. Option B. Initiate a detailed review of system access logs and metadata related to the observed pattern, documenting all findings before considering any access to case content. Option C. Immediately access specific customer case files that appear to be part of the anomalous activity to understand the context. Option D. Report the anomaly to the IT security team and await their instructions for further investigation, without accessing any case data. The correct answer is C. Immediately access specific customer case files that appear to be part of the anomalous activity to understand the context. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between the need for efficient case management and the ethical obligation to protect sensitive customer information. The monitoring system has identified a pattern that, while potentially indicative of a process improvement opportunity, also raises concerns about unauthorized access or misuse of data. The case manager must navigate this situation without compromising client privacy or violating data protection regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented investigation that prioritizes data privacy and regulatory compliance. This means first understanding the nature of the anomalous activity without directly accessing or reviewing the content of individual cases unless absolutely necessary and authorized. The focus should be on the metadata and system logs to identify patterns of access or processing that deviate from expected norms. If the investigation reveals potential policy violations or security breaches, the appropriate internal channels and reporting mechanisms must be followed, adhering strictly to IBM Case Manager's security protocols and any relevant data protection laws. This approach upholds professional integrity by ensuring that any actions taken are justified, proportionate, and compliant with legal and ethical standards. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately access specific customer case files to see what's going on. This directly violates privacy principles and potentially data protection regulations by exposing sensitive information without a clear, authorized purpose. It bypasses established security protocols and could lead to unauthorized disclosure or misuse of data. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the monitoring system's alert entirely, assuming it's a false positive. This is professionally negligent as it fails to address a potential security vulnerability or compliance issue. Ignoring such alerts can lead to significant breaches, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the observed anomalous activity with colleagues outside of the formal investigation process. This constitutes a breach of confidentiality and could lead to the unauthorized disclosure of information that, even if not directly case content, relates to system behavior and potentially sensitive patterns. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Acknowledging the alert and its potential implications. 2. Consulting relevant policies, procedures, and regulatory guidelines. In this case, those pertaining to IBM Case Manager v5.0 and applicable data protection laws. 3. Initiating a discrete, authorized investigation focusing on system logs and metadata before considering access to case content. 4. Escalating findings through appropriate channels if policy violations or security breaches are suspected. 5. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made. This methodical approach ensures that actions are both effective and ethically sound. Question 14. Which approach would be most professionally sound when a client expresses enthusiasm for IBM Case Manager v5.0, but also raises concerns about its perceived complexity and the potential for significant customization requirements for their specific business processes? Option A. Recommend exploring alternative case management solutions that might appear simpler upfront, without thoroughly evaluating if IBM Case Manager v5.0 could indeed meet their long-term strategic goals with appropriate planning. Option B. Emphasize the powerful features and extensive success stories of IBM Case Manager v5.0, assuring the client that any complexity can be easily managed with standard implementation practices. Option C. Suggest that the client's concerns about complexity are likely overstated and that with minimal effort, IBM Case Manager v5.0 can be adapted to their needs without significant customization. Option D. Acknowledge the client's concerns. Provide a balanced overview of IBM Case Manager v5.0's capabilities and potential customization needs, and offer to conduct a detailed assessment to determine the best fit and implementation strategy. The correct answer is D. Acknowledge the client's concerns. Provide a balanced overview of IBM Case Manager v5.0's capabilities and potential customization needs, and offer to conduct a detailed assessment to determine the best fit and implementation strategy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a client's desire for a specific outcome and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and unbiased information. The case manager must navigate the pressure to please the client while upholding professional integrity and adhering to the principles of responsible case management. The core of the challenge lies in balancing client advocacy with the duty to provide objective guidance based on the capabilities and limitations of IBM Case Manager v5.0. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency, informed decision-making, and the client's long-term success. By clearly outlining the limitations and potential complexities of IBM Case Manager v5.0, the case manager empowers the client to make a realistic assessment of the solution's suitability. This aligns with ethical guidelines that mandate honesty, competence, and a commitment to client welfare. It avoids misleading the client, which could lead to dissatisfaction, project failure, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on highlighting the positive aspects of IBM Case Manager v5.0 without acknowledging potential challenges would be professionally unacceptable. This would constitute a failure to provide complete and accurate information, potentially leading the client to invest in a solution that does not fully meet their needs or expectations. Such an approach violates the ethical principle of honesty and could be seen as a misrepresentation of the product's capabilities. Another incorrect approach that involves downplaying the client's specific concerns or suggesting that they are not significant enough to warrant attention would also be professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of active listening and a failure to address the client's genuine needs and potential roadblocks. It undermines the trust relationship and suggests an unwillingness to engage with the client's unique circumstances, potentially leading to a solution that is not tailored to their requirements. A third incorrect approach that involves recommending a different, potentially less suitable, solution without a clear and objective justification based on the client's stated requirements and the capabilities of IBM Case Manager v5.0 would be ethically questionable. This could be perceived as a lack of expertise or an attempt to steer the client towards a solution that benefits the case manager or their organization in ways not aligned with the client's best interests. A professional reasoning process for navigating such situations involves a commitment to understanding the client's needs thoroughly, possessing a deep and accurate knowledge of the product or service being offered, and maintaining a steadfast adherence to ethical principles. Professionals should always strive to provide objective, balanced information, even when it might be less favorable to the immediate sale or client satisfaction. This involves active listening, clear communication, and a willingness to discuss both the strengths and weaknesses of any proposed solution. The ultimate goal is to facilitate an informed decision that leads to a successful and sustainable outcome for the client. Question 15. The review process indicates that the current customer inquiry resolution workflow in IBM Case Manager v5.0 is experiencing delays, impacting customer satisfaction scores. To address this, a proposal has been made to automate the initial data validation step, which is currently performed manually by case workers. This automation aims to expedite the process by immediately routing inquiries to the appropriate specialist team, without requiring manual review of all submitted data fields. However, the proposed automation bypasses a specific manual check that ensures all mandatory fields are populated according to internal data integrity guidelines, which are indirectly influenced by industry best practices for data handling. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for process optimization with the imperative to maintain data integrity and operational compliance? Option A. Implement the proposed automation to immediately route inquiries, relying on the specialist teams to identify and correct any missing mandatory data during their subsequent review. Option B. Defer any automation of the validation step and instead focus on retraining caseworkers to improve the speed and accuracy of their manual data checks. Option C. Implement the automation to bypass the manual check, assuming that the majority of inquiries will have complete data and that occasional errors can be addressed reactively. Option D. Develop a more sophisticated automated validation rule with an IBM Case Manager that flags incomplete cases for immediate review by a dedicated data quality team before routing to specialist teams. The correct answer is A. Implement the proposed automation to immediately route inquiries, relying on the specialist teams to identify and correct any missing mandatory data during their subsequent review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in optimizing a business process with an IBM Case Manager v5.0, specifically concerning the efficient handling of customer inquiries. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for speed and customer satisfaction with the regulatory requirement for thorough documentation and adherence to established service-level agreements, SLAs. A hasty optimization that bypasses critical validation steps could lead to compliance breaches and reputational damage, while an overly cautious approach might result in inefficiency and customer dissatisfaction, potentially impacting business performance. The correct approach, which involves a phased implementation of process changes with continuous monitoring and feedback loops, represents best professional practice. This methodology aligns with the principles of agile development and continuous improvement, allowing for iterative refinement of the process. It ensures that any optimizations are validated against both performance metrics and regulatory compliance requirements before full deployment. This approach minimizes risk by allowing for early detection and correction of issues, thereby upholding professional integrity and ensuring adherence to the spirit and letter of any applicable regulations governing customer service and data handling. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over validation would be professionally unacceptable. Such an approach risks introducing errors or omissions into the case handling workflow, potentially violating data privacy regulations or internal compliance policies. This could lead to significant penalties, loss of customer trust, and damage to the organization's reputation. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical efficiency without considering the impact on user experience or regulatory adherence, would also be flawed. This might lead to a process that is technically faster but creates bottlenecks for human agents or fails to capture necessary information for audit trails, thereby contravening regulatory expectations for transparency and accountability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the process objectives, including performance targets and regulatory constraints. This should be followed by a thorough analysis of potential optimization strategies, evaluating each against these objectives. A risk assessment should then be conducted for each viable strategy, identifying potential compliance issues or performance degradation. The chosen strategy should be implemented incrementally, with robust testing and monitoring at each stage. Regular feedback from users and stakeholders, coupled with ongoing performance analysis, should inform further adjustments, ensuring that the process remains optimized and compliant. Question 16. The analysis reveals that a financial services firm using IBM Case Manager v5.0 is experiencing delays in its loan application processing. While the current workflow is compliant, it is perceived as cumbersome by caseworkers. To address this, a proposal suggests significantly altering the sequence of approval steps and automating certain data validation checks that were previously manual, with the stated goal of reducing processing time by 30%. This proposal is based on informal feedback from a few caseworkers and a general observation of workflow duration. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for process optimization in a regulated environment using IBM Case Manager v5.0? Option A. Immediately implement the proposed changes to the approval sequence and automated validation, as the potential for a 30% reduction in processing time is a significant business benefit, and the informal feedback suggests a clear need for improvement. Option B. Prioritize the reordering of approval steps based on the caseworker's perceived efficiency, and defer the automation of data validation until after the new sequence is established and has demonstrated some initial time savings. Option C. Conduct a detailed process analysis using IBM Case Manager's built-in analytics and audit logs to identify specific bottlenecks and measure current performance metrics. Develop targeted, incremental changes to the workflow, followed by rigorous testing and validation to ensure both efficiency gains and continued compliance before full deployment. Option D. Focus solely on automating all manual data validation steps, as this is a common area for efficiency gains, and assume that reordering approval steps is a secondary concern that can be addressed later if necessary. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed process analysis using IBM Case Manager's built-in analytics and audit logs to identify specific bottlenecks and measure current performance metrics. Develop targeted, incremental changes to the workflow, followed by rigorous testing and validation to ensure both efficiency gains and continued compliance before full deployment. Explanation. The analysis reveals a common challenge in process optimization within regulated environments, balancing efficiency gains with the stringent requirements of compliance. In this scenario, the core professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process improvements that not only streamline operations, but also maintain or enhance the integrity and auditability of case handling, as mandated by IBM Case Manager v5.0's design principles and implied regulatory adherence for such systems. The need to demonstrate adherence to established workflows and data integrity is paramount, especially when dealing with sensitive case information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven methodology that aligns with the core tenets of process optimization as supported by IBM Case Manager v5. 0. This involves a thorough understanding of the existing process, identifying bottlenecks through objective metrics, and then designing and testing solutions that demonstrably improve efficiency without compromising compliance. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of maintaining auditable and controlled processes within case management systems. The focus on iterative refinement and validation ensures that any changes are robust and meet both business and compliance objectives. Each incorrect approach presents specific regulatory or ethical failures. One incorrect approach might involve making significant changes based on anecdotal evidence or assumptions without proper validation. This fails to meet the professional standard of due diligence and could lead to unintended consequences, such as introducing errors or creating compliance gaps that are difficult to trace and rectify. Ethically, it represents a failure to act with professional responsibility by risking the integrity of the case management system and potentially impacting the accuracy of case outcomes. Another incorrect approach could be to implement changes that, while appearing efficient, bypass established security or audit trails. This directly violates the principles of secure and auditable systems, which are fundamental to regulatory compliance in any jurisdiction where such systems are deployed. It creates a significant risk of data breaches, unauthorized access, or an inability to reconstruct case histories, all of which carry severe regulatory penalties and ethical implications. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the current process and its objectives, including any regulatory constraints. Second, gather objective data to identify specific areas for improvement. Third, brainstorm potential solutions, considering their impact on efficiency, compliance, and user experience. Fourth, prioritize and pilot the most promising solutions, rigorously testing them against defined metrics and compliance requirements. Finally, implement validated changes with clear documentation and ongoing monitoring. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both business goals and regulatory obligations. Question 17. Market research demonstrates that a competitor has significantly reduced their case processing times by implementing a new AI-driven workflow automation tool. Your organization, using IBM Case Manager v5.0, is considering similar process optimization strategies to improve efficiency. Which of the following approaches best balances the pursuit of efficiency with the need for regulatory compliance and system integrity? Option A. Immediately adopt a cutting-edge, AI-driven workflow automation tool that has shown promise in other industries, assuming it will deliver similar efficiency gains without requiring extensive integration or modification of the existing IBM Case Manager v5.0 environment. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of the cheapest available process optimization software that promises a reduction in manual tasks, with the understanding that any minor compliance issues can be addressed retrospectively after deployment. Option C. Focus on streamlining the user interface of IBM Case Manager v5.0 to make it more intuitive, believing that improved user experience will naturally lead to faster case processing without the need to alter underlying workflows or integrations. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the current IBM Case Manager v5.0 process, identifying specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement through user feedback and system logs. Subsequently, research and evaluate potential optimization solutions, including AI-driven tools, ensuring each proposed solution is rigorously tested for compliance with relevant regulations and IBM's best practices for v5.0 before implementation. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the current IBM Case Manager v5.0 process, identifying specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement through user feedback and system logs. Subsequently, research and evaluate potential optimization solutions, including AI-driven tools, ensuring each proposed solution is rigorously tested for compliance with relevant regulations and IBM's best practices for v5.0 before implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within regulated industries, balancing the need for efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain compliance and data integrity. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process improvements that demonstrably enhance operational effectiveness without introducing risks that could lead to regulatory noncompliance. data breaches, or compromised audit trails. Careful judgment is required to select optimization strategies that are both innovative and robust within the established legal and regulatory framework. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven analysis of the existing process and its compliance implications before implementing changes. This aligns with regulatory principles that emphasize understanding the impact of any modification on data security, auditability, and adherence to specific IBM Case Manager v5. Zero functionalities and their intended use. By focusing on identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies through direct observation and user feedback, and then validating potential solutions against compliance requirements and IBM's recommended practices for v5. Zero, the organization ensures that optimization efforts are grounded in reality and do not inadvertently create new vulnerabilities. This proactive, risk-aware methodology is crucial for maintaining the integrity of case management systems, which often handle sensitive information. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on adopting the latest technological trends without a comprehensive impact assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the specific regulatory environment governing case management systems and the potential for new technologies to introduce unforeseen compliance risks. For instance, implementing a new, unvetted integration might bypass existing security controls or disrupt the audit trail, leading to violations of data privacy regulations or internal governance policies. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction above all else, without considering the impact on process integrity or compliance, is equally flawed. This can lead to the selection of solutions that, while cheaper, compromise the system's ability to meet regulatory requirements, such as maintaining accurate records or providing timely access to case information for audits. Such a focus can result in significant financial penalties and reputational damage if non-compliance is discovered. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the current process and its regulatory context. Second, identify potential areas for optimization, considering both efficiency and compliance. Third, evaluate proposed solutions against a defined set of criteria, including regulatory adherence, data integrity, security, user impact, and cost-effectiveness. Fourth, conduct pilot testing and validation before full deployment. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and review mechanisms to ensure continued compliance and effectiveness. This methodical approach ensures that process optimization efforts are strategic, responsible, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory mandates. Question 18. Governance review demonstrates a potential bottleneck in the automated routing of case documents within IBM Case Manager v5. 0. Impacting processing times. A proposed optimization involves bypassing certain intermediate data validation steps to expedite document flow. What is the most critical consideration when evaluating this proposed optimization? Option A. The cost savings associated with implementing the proposed optimization. Option B. The potential reduction in processing time achieved by bypassing intermediate data validation steps. Option C. The impact of the proposed optimization on the integrity and auditability of the data lineage for case documents. Option D. The user experience improvements resulting from faster document processing. Correct answer is C. The impact of the proposed optimization on the integrity and auditability of the data lineage for case documents. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within regulated environments, balancing the need for efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain compliance and data integrity. The governance review has identified a potential bottleneck, but the proposed solution, while seemingly efficient, carries risks related to data lineage and auditability. This requires a careful judgment call, as a hasty implementation could lead to regulatory noncompliance or operational risks, while an overly cautious approach might fail to address the identified inefficiency, impacting business objectives. The professional challenge lies in identifying a solution that satisfies both operational and compliance requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment of the proposed optimization on data lineage and audit trails. This aligns with the fundamental principles of data governance and regulatory compliance, which mandate that all data transformations and processing steps must be traceable and auditable. IBM Case Manager v5.0, like many enterprise systems, relies on robust audit capabilities to demonstrate compliance with various regulations. By ensuring that any optimization preserves or enhances these capabilities, the organization upholds its commitment to transparency and accountability. This approach prioritizes risk mitigation and long-term system stability over short-term gains, representing best professional practice in a regulated industry. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the optimization without verifying its impact on data lineage and audit trails represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the critical need for traceability, which is often a cornerstone of regulatory frameworks governing data handling and business processes. Such a failure could lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and an inability to respond effectively to audits or investigations. Focusing solely on the perceived efficiency gains without considering the downstream implications for data integrity and compliance is another failure. This narrow focus ignores the interconnectedness of business processes and regulatory requirements. It suggests a lack of holistic thinking and an insufficient understanding of the broader operational and legal landscape. Ignoring the governance review's findings and proceeding with the optimization without further investigation is a direct contravention of established governance protocols. This demonstrates a disregard for internal controls and risk management processes, which are essential for maintaining a compliant and secure operational environment. It signals a breakdown in communication and adherence to organizational policies. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should adopt a structured decision-making process. First, thoroughly understand the identified bottleneck and the proposed solution. Second, engage with relevant stakeholders, including compliance officers, IT security, and business process owners, to assess the potential impacts. Third, conduct a risk assessment, specifically evaluating the implications for data lineage, auditability, and regulatory compliance. Fourth, explore alternative optimization strategies that may offer efficiency gains without compromising compliance. Finally, document the decision-making process, the rationale behind the chosen approach, and any residual risks. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both business objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 19. During the evaluation of potential process optimizations within IBM Case Manager v5.0 to improve workflow efficiency, which of the following strategies best balances the need for rapid implementation with the critical requirement for maintaining data integrity and auditability? Option A. Prioritizing the optimization based solely on the projected reduction in processing time, without extensive testing, to achieve immediate cost savings. Option B. Reverting to manual processes for critical case handling steps during the optimization period to avoid any potential system-related errors. Option C. Deploying the optimized process across all case types and users simultaneously after a brief internal review, assuming the changes are minor and unlikely to cause significant disruption. Option D. Implementing a pilot program in a controlled environment to test the optimized process with a subset of cases, followed by a phased rollout to the broader user base with ongoing monitoring and validation. The correct answer is D. Implementing a pilot program in a controlled environment to test the optimized process with a subset of cases, followed by a phased rollout to the broader user base with ongoing monitoring and validation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within a regulated environment like that governed by IBM Case Manager v5.0. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain compliance and data integrity. Professionals must navigate the complexities of system configuration, business process logic, and potential impacts on audit trails and reporting, all while adhering to established best practices and any applicable regulatory guidelines for data handling and process execution. The correct approach, which involves a phased rollout with thorough testing and validation, represents best professional practice because it systematically mitigates risks. This method ensures that any optimizations do not inadvertently introduce errors, compromise data accuracy, or violate regulatory requirements. By isolating changes and verifying their impact at each stage, it allows for early detection and correction of issues, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the case management system and its outputs. This aligns with the principle of due diligence in system management and process improvement. An incorrect approach that bypasses rigorous testing and validation before a full deployment would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It risks introducing systemic errors that could lead to incorrect case outcomes, inaccurate reporting, and potential breaches of data privacy or compliance mandates. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for the potential consequences of untested changes, undermining the trust placed in the system and the organization's commitment to responsible data management. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on process effectiveness or compliance, is also professionally unacceptable. While cost efficiency is a valid business objective, it cannot come at the expense of operational integrity or regulatory adherence. This approach fails to recognize that the true value of process optimization lies in improving both efficiency and effectiveness within the established legal and ethical framework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment. This includes identifying potential impacts of proposed changes on system functionality, data integrity, auditability, and regulatory compliance. Following this, a phased implementation strategy with clear testing and validation criteria at each phase is crucial. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure that optimizations achieve their intended goals without negative side effects. Professionals must prioritize a balanced approach that considers all stakeholders and adheres to the highest standards of professional conduct and regulatory compliance. Question 20. System analysis indicates that a critical business process managed by IBM Case Manager V50 is experiencing significant delays, impacting customer service levels. While the primary objective is to reduce the overall case processing cycle time, the organization operates under strict regulatory guidelines that mandate specific data handling and audit trail requirements. Which of the following approaches to process optimization would best align with the absolute priority of adhering to these jurisdiction requirements? Option A. Conduct a detailed analysis of the current process to identify specific bottlenecks that may also pose compliance risks, and then design and implement targeted optimizations that demonstrably maintain or enhance regulatory adherence while improving efficiency. Option B. Implement a series of automated tasks to bypass manual review steps, focusing solely on accelerating the flow of cases through the system. Option C. Rely on the experience of long-term staff to identify areas for improvement, assuming their current practices are inherently compliant. Option D. Introduce new software features that promise faster processing, without a thorough review of how these features interact with existing data retention and audit logging policies. The correct answer is B. Implement a series of automated tasks to bypass manual review steps, focusing solely on accelerating the flow of cases through the system. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within a regulated environment, specifically concerning IBM Case Manager V50. The core difficulty lies in balancing the drive for efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain compliance with established regulatory frameworks. In this context, the absolute priority of jurisdiction requirements means that any proposed optimization must demonstrably uphold or improve upon existing compliance standards, not merely achieve faster processing times. The professional challenge is to identify an optimization strategy that is both effective in improving process flow and unequivocally compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven assessment of the current process against regulatory mandates before introducing changes. This ensures that any proposed optimization is not only technically feasible, but also legally sound and ethically responsible. By focusing on identifying bottlenecks that hinder compliance or create opportunities for error, and then proposing solutions that address these specific issues while adhering to all jurisdictional requirements, this approach minimizes risk and maximizes the likelihood of successful, compliant implementation. This aligns with the principle of compliance by design, where regulatory considerations are integrated from the outset of process improvement initiatives. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing cycle time without a corresponding regulatory impact assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the absolute priority of jurisdiction requirements. Such an approach risks introducing new compliance gaps or exacerbating existing ones, leading to potential regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to understand the fundamental constraints imposed by the regulatory framework. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing a quick fix without proper validation or testing against regulatory standards is also professionally unsound. This haste bypasses essential steps for ensuring compliance and can lead to unintended consequences. It prioritizes speed over accuracy and safety, which is a direct violation of the principle that regulatory adherence is paramount. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or assumptions about regulatory compliance, rather than concrete data and documented adherence, is equally problematic. This subjective approach lacks the rigor required in a regulated environment and can lead to a false sense of security regarding compliance. It fails to provide the auditable trail and verifiable evidence that regulatory bodies expect. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand and document all applicable jurisdictional requirements thoroughly. 2. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the current process, identifying areas of inefficiency and potential compliance risks. 3. Prioritize optimization efforts based on their potential to improve both efficiency and compliance. 4. Develop proposed solutions that explicitly address identified issues and demonstrate continued or enhanced regulatory adherence. 5. Rigorously test and validate proposed solutions against both performance metrics and regulatory requirements. 6. Implement changes with clear documentation and ongoing monitoring to ensure sustained compliance.